Today I'm filming from one of the game rooms of my friendly local game store. My house is a mess because I have constructors over that are remodeling the basement to turn it into my gamer cave. But they're being very noisy today, there's no way I can film there. But I still wanted to share some ideas and opinions that I have about some games. In this video I'm going to tell you about Agent Hunter, a small game, a card game by AEG in the line of small games that come in boxes such as this one. The theme, hypothetically, is espionage and hunting down enemy agents. In reality, it is a fairly abstract game which is about deducing numbers and bluffing about the numbers that you have hidden from the opponent. Let me show you how the game works. The game includes a single sheet of rules. It will take you 5 minutes to learn the game. Also, there aren't any strange counterintuitive concepts. 2 sets of tokens, red and blue. 2 player rates, which pretty much include most of the rules. It's pretty much the rules condensed on a card. And then 2 sets of cards, blue and red. Each player will receive a set. These cards have illustrations, art that personally I don't really like. This is the art representing your spatial agents. It reminds me too much of the sexist, unrealistic, steroid-based art of superhero comics of the 90s. I just thought that was the darkest period in the history of superhero comics. I don't like what happened to the human body and the human shape at that time. If you can stomach the art, well, all that matters really is the number here. The illustrations are completely immaterial and irrelevant to the purposes of the game. So what each player has is simply a deck of cards numbered from 0 to 9. 10 cards from 0 to 9. And that's it. I think that technically you could play with any deck of regular cards. You just use a joker as a 0. I don't think anything would change actually if you're just using cards from ace as 1 to 10. But this is what you have in the game. Each player has a deck of 10 cards, and you choose 3 of those cards, which you place face down at the beginning of the game. Suppose I want to put a 4, a 1, and an 8. There. The opponent does the same. The opponent chooses 3 cards and puts them face down in a line. These 3 cards that are face down are called the safe houses of the players. When it is your turn, you can do one of 3 things. You can attack an enemy's safe house from your hand, that is, using a card that you still have in your hand. What you do, you simply choose a card in your hand, suppose a 6, and you select a safe house of the opponent as you show the card. So the opponent gets to know that you have a 6 in your hand. The opponent secretly looks at their card and tells you, oh, look at this is lucky one. It tells you if their card is higher, lower, or the same. If the card is the same, you have eliminated the card of the opponent. Now, you saw how I did it here. It's not that easy. This is luck, and it happens once in 10 times. If you eliminate a card in a safe house of the opponent by matching with your card, you place your card on top, something like this, and that safe house is destroyed. Otherwise, suppose that you weren't that lucky, that you played a 2, the opponent secretly looks at the card and tells you whether the card is higher or lower. So 2, well, I got to learn that that card in there is higher than 2. That completes my action for the turn if I decided to attack from my hand. You could also decide to do the same by attacking from your safe house. That is, you reveal a card in a safe house, you indicate the card in the safe house of an opponent, and the opponent does the same. Looks at it and tells you if it's lower, higher, or the same. The difference when you're attacking from a safe house is that if you get it wrong, your card is eliminated and the safe house is eliminated, as opposed to what happens when you're playing from your hand, that if you get it wrong, then you simply get that information and you get the card back. So when you're attacking from a safe house, you need to be pretty much certain of what's happening in the safe house that you're attacking. You need to have a very good idea of what's there, because it is much riskier The third and last action that you can take is to switch agents from your hand to the safe house. I know that you have been looking at this card several times, and you know that that card, for example, is higher than 3 and lower than 5. So I need to keep track of what you know, which means both of what I showed you and the information I gave you when I answered your questions. So I need to get a sense of how much you know. I'm getting a sense that you know my card, or you're fairly close to knowing it, then things get dangerous. I decide to use my action for the turn to switch agents, which is I take the card in the safe house, I replace it with a card in my hand, but I have to place a token there. This serves two functions. First, it keeps track of the number of switches that you performed. You can switch agents only up to 5 times in a game. Also, however, the safe house that has a token, that is the safe house where you switched agents during the game, is now worth more points to the opponent. So you're still trying to do this not very often, as few times as you can actually. So these are the 3 actions that you can take. Attack from your hand, attack from a safe house, switch agents. The game continues until all 3 safe houses of a player have been eliminated, like this, by matching them. And then suppose that this one here, the opponent has eliminated that one. And then this is the case. With a 7. Where's the 5? I lost the blue 5. This. There you go. There's the situation. The game is over because blue has eliminated all 3 safe houses of the opponent, and red only has eliminated 1 safe house of the blue player. When the game is over, you count points. The player that eliminated all safe houses of the opponent is not necessarily the winner. You score a point for each safe house of the opponent that you eliminated, plus a point for each token in safe houses that of the opponent that you eliminated. For example, in this case, blue player scores 3 points for eliminating those 3 safe houses, and red player scores 2 points because it's 1 safe house plus this one. Suppose that blue had switched cards a lot, suppose that this is the case, then we have 3 points for blue player and 3 points for red player, which eliminated a single safe house, but that safe house has 2 tokens in it, so it's 1, 2, 3 points. When it gets to this, when you have a tie, then the tiebreaker is the total value of the cards that you still have in your hand. The player that has the highest amount is the winner. Now, this game clearly is a little filler. Even within the filler categories, it's a pretty lean, pretty minimalistic one. But I have to say, for what the game is, it has to offer some significant, some interesting decisions within the scale of a filler that you can play in 5-10 minutes. You may have a game that lasts 2 minutes because luck plays a huge role and you simply keep guessing the cards of the opponent. But I don't think that will happen all that often, and the game is so quick that if that happens, it won't take long for you to set up the game again and play another game. If you find that there is a problem there, then you can play 5 games, probably in around half an hour, 40 minutes, and you see which player was most successful if a single game doesn't give you a sense of who is the best agent hunter. As for the decisions that you have, again, it's a small range, but it's an interesting one. Starting from the cards that you're going to place in your safe houses. Ideally, you want the cards to be there, to stay there, so you don't have to switch them too often, which prevents you from giving too many points to the opponent. So you have to choose which cards you're going to, quote-unquote, sacrificing to put them there. Why do I say so? Because there are cards that are good detectives, cards with value 4, 5, or 6. If you use them to investigate the card of an opponent, they will give you a lot of information, because if you know that it's higher than 5 or lower than 5, then you have excluded a lot of possible cards. If you're trying to attack somebody and to get a sense of what card they may have with a 1, well, you may be lucky and you're told that it's lower than that, but most likely you'll be told it's higher than 1. and then you haven't excluded many cards. So to have those cards between 4 and 6 in your hand at the beginning is kind of good. But precisely because of that, the opponent may know that there are some cards that you are not likely to have there in your safe house. So maybe you want to keep a combination of the good ones that are good detectives, so to speak, in your hand, and some in the safe house to trick the opponent. And then there's a lot of that quote-unquote mind reading. I think that the opponent knows, I think that the opponent may think of this or that. It doesn't really get to the level of making the game a game of social deduction, because in reality you have to memorize numbers. As long as you remember the numbers that you have, then you have a very simple, linear, minimal work of deduction to do, because you are getting information from the opponent based on the investigations that you perform, higher, lower, but also the opponent is showing you cards when the opponent is attacking you. And which also means when you are attacking, you need to take into account what the opponent already knows, so that you show cards that the opponent has excluded already. So that you're attacking with cards that the opponent has excluded already means that you're not giving extra information. So you're trying to harvest as much information as possible, very often by simply remembering the cards that you saw, and you're trying to remember what you showed the opponent so that you can show the same card as many times as possible to withhold as much information as possible from the opponent. I don't want to sort of oversell the strategy of this game. It is not a deep game exactly, but it has enough decisions, it has enough wrinkles to it to make it a very entertaining filler. I played this game with an academic professional mathematician. I thought she would just destroy me, but we still actually, I still held my ground. But actually she enjoyed it very much, and actually she saw even potential in this game to use it to introduce young gamers, age maybe 8 or 9, or a little younger, a little older, to basic ideas about numbers, mathematics, comparison, higher, lower, to get them passionate about thinking about numbers, to get them interested, to show them that comparing numbers doesn't have to be the driest, most boring thing in the world. So actually, we're probably going to use Agent Hunter in an event that she has to introduce again, not to introduce mathematics to children, but to familiarize them, to make them feel more comfortable with dealing with numbers. And I will try to participate to that event, but I'm glad that actually completely by chance she played the game, she enjoyed it, and she saw that potential. So there's that potential pedagogical use in the game. The art, however, is really not something that I would feel comfortable playing, showing to a young child. I have to put a disclaimer. I don't want the kind of art to quote-unquote look normal. I don't want to normalize the kind of art. If you are an adult and you enjoy the kind of art, I would prefer if you enjoyed more dignified representations of the human body, but it is your choice. It is completely your choice. It's your business transaction between the maker of the game and your personal taste. But as for children, I don't think that is appropriate. It's not something that I would like to play with children, not again with this art. The mechanics are excellent. So we probably, when we play it with younger players, will replace the cards with regular cards, and you can play the game that way. Agent Hunter, small game definitely. I don't like the art. I think I pointed that out several times. Other than that, this is a pretty good design. Definitely surprising for the minimalism behind the game. It is a game that definitely is more than the sum of the parts. The sum of the parts is so little, but the experience of playing the game is pretty entertaining, and it definitely makes for a good filler.